Come and get started on a new mission, a new direction, a new intention. Welcome to 5.8G Alive at Connections 50 Plus. I am Terri-Ann Joseph Brathwaite.
And I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, catering to all your prospects in the third act of life.
Economic well-being, social gratification, personal fulfillment.
Join us on Wednesday at 6 p.m. on Connections 50 Plus Facebook page, YouTube channel,
and on Gael the Caribbean.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Connections 5.8G Alive show. I am Jennifer Gibbons Joseph, one of the co-creators of Connections 50 Plus. And as usual on our Wednesday show, I have with me my colleague.
Hi, everyone. This is Terri-Ann Joseph Brathwaite here, the other co-creator. It's Wednesday and another Wednesday. I'm excited. It's 5.8G Alive.
Yes, and Terri-Ann, we are continuing to talk about securing African legacy. And this show, we are moving to a younger generation. So we heard last week, we continued for the month of August. We started with the concert, and then we went the following week with Terri-Ann and I discussing about what we think about, on emancipation. And then we had a very in-depth, very informative conversation with Ian Jeffers last week about, securing African legacy. And we learned a lot. And from that discussion, we felt that, let's invite the younger generation and hear what they have to say, because we are the elders. I keep saying that, Terri, and I'm so proud to be an elder. So we're going to have, the younger generation with us this evening, sharing their thoughts about securing a legacy.
Yeah. And I'm truly interested and excited, because one of the things that Ian brought up, and which is so critical for legacy of anyone, but it's August and we are celebrating emancipation, so we are focusing on our own tribe. It is that legacy is a relay. It must be passed on. And one of the things that Ian really brought to the fore is the difficulty our cohort, 5.8G, we have with talking to people, the younger people who are outside of our generation. So we are really, really interested and excited to have this conversation. Yes. And we've got 4 really dynamic people who Jennifer will introduce us to. So we are going to talk about being a tribe, and tribes leave legacies.
Yes.
So folks, Jennifer is going to lead that discussion, and then I will come back on at the end. So let's get into being a tribe.
Great. So I welcome all these beautiful young people to join me right now on the show.
Hi, guys.
Great. So you are seeing, I am surrounded by 4 beautiful people. 2 young men, 2 young women. I'm the elder in the midst, okay? So I will allow them to introduce themselves to you, and we're going to get into the conversation where I've asked them to open up and, chat about how they feel, what they think about leaving a legacy and about this emancipation, okay? So we'll start, and Kosi, you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, do that. That's fine. My name is Nkosi Farmer, from Diego Martin. 29 years old. I have a bachelor's degree in construction management and a master's degree in engineering management. I work in construction management, project management in Miami, Florida, as of the moment. And that's about it for now, a little project management, and that's me.
Great. So let me go down to Kavel.
Evening, everyone. My name is Kavel Davis. I am the creative director and founder of the Pitter Patter Playhouse Limited. We are a professional childcare service and we cater to the needs of the professional family. I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm excited to get into it.
Great. Welcome, Kavel. And Brandon, you want to go now?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Strong. I'm 38 years of age. I'm a serving member in Trinidad Coast Guard. I'm also a certified licensed massage therapist. I'm the owner of Oasis Massage Therapy. I'm from Arima and currently studying my bachelor's in kinesiology at UTT. And I'm here today to get into a nice discussion here about African legacy.
Great.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay, and of course, you know we're not leaving out Nalini. So Nalini, you want to introduce yourself to us?
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Nalini Jones. I am 26 years old. I'm from Mova, Laventille area. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting and finance from the University of Southampton in England. So I am the co-owner of Yala Auto Center Limited. We are a tire sales and repairs company that cater to the needs of both private and commercial clients.
Great.
Happy to be here for this conversation.
All right, and welcome to you all. You know, it is really exciting. I know this will be a very interesting and exciting conversation, and it's all about you all chatting. So at this stage, I will just have you all just talk, you know, and that question that we asked, what do you think about, you know, securing a legacy and that African legacy, of course, in the Caribbean context. So how do you say, take it away? So anyone, you get to start and, you know, and you all will just join in and, you know, share your views.
So you said African legacy, right, Jennifer?
Yeah, what it means to you?
I think we had to start with just legacy in general. So legacy would be, in my words, just one word legacy means to pass on something to your children, to pass on something to people that are going to be there after you. So putting African into that would be directly putting people that look like me and people that sound like me and talk like me and dress like me to make sure that our culture and our legacy lives on to more than just me, to more than my children, to more than my grandchildren, but to continue pushing or making sure that lives on. One obviously is a good thing.
Just to add what Nkosi said, I would say leave something great,
exactly,
accomplishing for your children, because it can leave death and debt for your children.
Exactly.
So when you say legacy, you want something great. You want to know
something positive.
Right.
Positive,
you want to know that
great.
the Jones in Mova, they are known for great workmanship. All the Jones are known for being great tiles person, great masons, working good with their hands. You want to know that all the Davis, they are good with counting money. All the Palmers, anything to do with sundial, anything to do with the ocean, they have that legacy. So you want it to be great. And when you're talking about African legacy, what you find happening is that there are things that inhibit or stop our legacy from happening due to whatever reason: slavery, being colonized, oppression, systematic racism, a lot of things that stop our legacy. And to pass that on, it is imperative that we as African people continue to dig and get that information to pass on that legacy onto our children and even people in close parameters.
All right.
Sorry, I agree with that as well. And I have said that African legacy means passing and transferring and receiving excellence, because that's what it is about. You know what I mean? And we as Black men and women, of course, I have a son as well. I am constantly thinking about the legacy that I'm going to leave for him. And of course, my parents have left a legacy for me. So I am thinking about, constantly thinking about it, moving and passing on that to him. And of course, like in Kosi said, when you put African in front of it, it's a whole different pride and appreciation and everything. And as Brendan said, really digging deep to consistently do it and be serious about leaving something, for our kids.
Right. I just wanted to broaden the definition even more because legacy, when you think of legacy, is such a big word. You can have a legacy for a lot of things. So you can have financial legacy. You can have financial, meaning money, property. You want to leave behind those material money value things. Also have a moral legacy in terms of what you want to be known for. How good of when you leave this earth, were you a good person? Were you a bad person? Were you an honest person? So it have that moral aspect to it. And just for, since we're talking about African legacy, we could also throw in there cultural legacy. So that means our music, our stories, our dances, what are we passing on from our heritage, from our ancestors, to the next generation. So that
definitely. I agree with that. 100%.
That part where you said our ancestral legacy, that kind of, Miss Joseph will let you know that that is in my ballpark, because I wear it every day, I'm not an African only for Emancipation. I don't put on a costume to wear it for Emancipation Day. I wear it throughout the year, events, you name it. So my legacy has already started because in my work, they call me Kafrika Bun because anything I talk is always African. And it's not something that is forced, Just last week I went to take a haircut. And prior to taking a haircut last week, I went the week before. So I had a discussion, we were talking about Holocaust. So I said, sometimes when they mention Holocaust, the first thing that clicked to your mind is the Jewish Holocaust. But a lot of people don't know about the African Holocaust that happened under King Leopold. And when I went back to take the haircut this week, he was like, boss, I'm not talking to you now. You said something, and I went back and researched it. So it literally blew his mind because he did not know. And he's an elder person to me. He's like in his 50s, and he did not know that. So these are things that the information is there. We walk around with computers in our pocket every day. How hard is it to pull up and do a quick Google search? So things like that, our legacy, the great things that we did, Mansa Musa, the richest man in Mali, the guy that created the traffic lights, created the who did the first open heart surgery, the person who really created the filament in a light bulb. They would say is Thomas Edison. He created the bulb, but it wasn't working properly. There's an African who created the filament inside it to make it light. A lot of people didn't know this. So the onus is on us to continue to pass on these great legacies from our ancestors and forefathers.
Yeah, but Brandon, do you think it's like that it should start from the home, from school, in terms of, because of certain educator, that we don't teach history in preschool, you know what I mean? But so is it a socialization thing? You feel like it's something that we should teach in the home, start from the home? It's something that we should be having a discussion, because like you said, the information is out there, but we're not having that discussion. So like, what is your suggestion? Like, where do we start having that discussion?
I want to put this very quickly because Brendan, I like what Brendan said, especially because he said that he's have it on every day. Africa is everyday thing. That is normal to him. It's a normal conversation. It's not, as you say, we had to have a discussion. We have to bring up these discussions. Like Brendan talking about Africa a whole day, every day, because that is just what he loves, and that is just it. Like we're just talking about Mansa Musa because we know Mansa Musa, and then we like him, like how we would know let me say, King George V of England, but it's just the fact that the media put up King George V as one of the greatest kings ever and didn't put up Mansa Musa as one of the greatest kings ever. So the conversation is get into a discussion rather than a normal conversation. So to me, is kind of just having always talking about it and not having a fear or having a stigma to say, well, we're going to talk about Africa or we're going to talk about anything that we shouldn't be talking about, you know.
And going back to your question, Kavel, the home is the first place you would live. Because before the institution of education, which was the first university was in Salamanca, was in Africa. African built it. The parents are the first teachers. Oral traditions. Before anything was written down, there's oral traditions. So we need to talk it. I have this book written from David Mohammed, Black Economics. These are things my children would look at videos. They know about Thomas Sankara, right? He was the president of Burkina Faso.
How much of it have you learned from family?
I could say I've learned the bulk of it from my dad. He is an intellectual, very, very quiet, but auntie, of course, you know, part of the Black Power movement.
Yeah, he's quite very much active in the Black Power movement. Yeah.
Yeah, and still, you know, my dad is like, oh, wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, let's have a discussion. And I'm like, what? Yeah. You know, I learned it from him. But when I went to school, I realized, hey, you know, this doesn't sound like what my daddy taught me. You know what I mean? So that is, for me, that's where it came from, my hope.
Okay. All right. Nalini, you were from your home, you got any of the information, history from home?
Yes, I would say African culture and history has been embedded in me since I was maybe 3 years old. From going to Emancipation concerts and going to storytellings in the library about African history. It has been with me since growing up. But I'll have to be honest, I have not been one to, you know, continue that learning. You wouldn't see me picking up a book and reading it about Africa. Yes, I will know things from, you know, day to day, or even just reading things here by there. I'm not a activist like Brendan Strong, and I wouldn't wear Africa on my clothes and all of that. But I must say that it's embedded in me personally based on my interactions. So me, just the color of my skin, I know that I know my roots. I know my roots. Yeah. I know what we've been through. I wear it every day. I wear this color every day, and I know what it was like for people in the past that look like me, what they had to go through for me to have the privileges that I have today. And I don't take it for granted. And you know, I learn from that. So I would say that it's with me, and I learn here and there. Yeah.
Great. Okay. And Kosi?
Me personally, I did not learn much from home. And I'm not going to lie about it.
That's okay.
I would say not to put my parents down at all. It just wasn't. I would say parents these days, or not these days, but generally, kind of don't always look into or look to teach their kids. Some parents want to be that parent where they will let their kid or child go ahead and learn on their own. And my parents were kind of those kind of parents. And I have a lot of parents like that. And it's not bad parenting at all, you know, because at that point, you could really decipher and think and say, well, if I see this or if I read this, I could say, well, this is something right or something wrong based on your own judgment, rather than a parent telling you, well, this is what it is. This is history. This is what you're supposed to know. And you're kind of, it's a kind of I wouldn't say brainwash, but like you could tell a child good things and you could tell a child bad things. And if you're a parent and you are the teacher, you would generally be the guide of that child. So me, generally, I didn't learn much from home.
So when
In terms of,
I have a question for you then. So when you have kids, would you be educating your kids about African legacy, or do you?
I would put it
as your parents?
I would put African legacy and African history in the same parts of everything else, because we know on TV you're not getting anything about Africa. You go to school for 18 years, you don't even know all the countries in Africa name. You don't know nothing about Africa except the Nile.
All the positive things. We get a lot of negative things.
Exactly. No, and we don't learn anything in school at all, generally. So to me, is putting everything on an equal plate. But and obviously, as of right now, Africa education is not on equal plate to anything in the world in terms of education. To me, I don't know if in Africa it's different, but in the Western world, we don't learn anything about Africa generally, unless you do African history.
What do you mean?
Brandon, sorry, before you answer, tell me, did you get that from home too, from that grounding you have?
What?
Was it, Brandon, was it as a result of you, what your parents handed down, taught you about?
No,
African history?
I went out and I seek the information.
Okay.
What you see happening is
that's
that,
me now as well. So.
Well, what was happening, because the age group of my parents and maybe your parents between the 1950s onward, remember there's a lot of backlash for anything pro-Africa. Yeah. So what would happen is that they would try to shelter their children.
Yes.
Maybe just to get the information, just to get an education. So you don't want to be seen as a rebel in that time, because you're still under colonial powers. So things like the shelter Baptist, that was a problem. They could beat drums at a certain time. So they would shelter their children. Those that did would do it quietly. So the information was kind of covered and kind of shrouded in secrecy. But now, as things change, you find that it is more vocal. And people it wasn't so at all.
And even when going back to like just a comparison, say the Caribbean school system versus African school system, we would learn about, obviously in first year, second year, you learn social studies, you learn about the coat of arms, you learn about Indian Arrival Day, you learn about this, you learn about that. So you get a little bit of our culture in terms of African, but you really still didn't get much.
You didn't get much.
And you understand what I'm saying? And it's 40% Africans in Trinidad. So it's really just not making sense in terms of that. But back to the whole thing, my parents didn't really force anything down my throat. To me, I think the best way to learn is to ask people questions, as Brendan would say. You put out information and have people think about it afterwards. And I think when you ask somebody a question, it doesn't last just in that moment, but when they go home and they sleep and they say, well, I wonder why he asked about Mansa Musa, and they go and look up Mansa Musa and they go and find their own information, rather than forcing information on people.
Right.
So, and because these, sorry, so now when I say this will lead to the second question, and you actually started alluded to it, is how do you all think it should all evolve? How do we move forward now in terms of passing on or creating that African legacy for us and you as the generation now? How do you pass on the information?
I think for sure, you go ahead. These conversations is the best things that we could do, for sure.
So
all the
I was
time.
going to say, one of the simplest things you could do, if you look at Miss Jennifer's picture behind her, that is a start, right? That is an Egyptian picture. I don't like
Correct.
TV.
Correct.
So you can have the map of Africa. You can have
acknowledgement.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be a forceful way. You could come into the church, right? So show me where Ghana is today. Show me where this is. Show me where Togo is. Show me where Mauritania is. Show me where the Ivory Coast is. And they bring it out in an interactive way. There's so many cartoons and shows on YouTube with, African undertones, they're getting names. There's one on YouTube where my children know how did the zebra get his stripes, and they give the folk tale of it, and they look forward to different things. And as Kavel is in the teaching industry, you can bring it across that way. It's fun. It's not fun. So this is Africa, learn it or else. No, bring it across.
Or storytelling, use
Storytelling.
storytelling to get it across. Okay.
I mean, I agree with that, sir. But then I'm thinking, why we have to bring it across in a type of way? Why we can't just have a direct discussion?
No, this is for children.
Yeah, so even children, I'm saying, so I just going back, right? So
Right.
choosing a name for my son, it was a big discussion with my parents. You know what I mean? So my mom was like, well, if they pick up his resume and they look, look at them, throw it in the bin. You know what I mean? Name him Zachary. That is a good name. And I'm, you know what I mean? And my dad is there, because he's the one that pushed, the conversation. So dad is there, he's looking, and he's like, so what is going to be his middle name? And I'm like, well, I'm thinking about Malik. And mommy said, that's Muslim. And mommy, and my dad, I'm saying, why would he even do that? You know what I mean? We so want to fit in.
We are afraid.
Correct. So, we give our children these names, and I recently went back to Relaxed Hair just because it was more convenient. But even that discussion, I'm saying we relax our children's hair early in life because we can't deal with it. It's too much work. You
It's
know what I
too
mean?
difficult.
Yeah,
It's not professional. It's a
no, and I'm saying I have direct discussions with my son, and I am happy that my dad is still around, that he has direct discussions. And while I am in education and I want to teach certain things a certain way, I find we should have direct discussions. I mean, only when I am an adult, when I became an adult, I think Christopher Columbus discovered something, yeah? Then I'm going to Christopher and really discover nothing. So then all of these coming up on Facebook and people saying the only Christopher we acknowledge is Wallace. And this is me trying to figure out, but all the time in school I did history, and this is what I learned. I'm saying direct discussions are important. We need to stop dancing around the thing. We need to have more direct discussions with our children, leaving the legacy for them, making them understand, I am leaving this for you for this reason. I am leaving this for you because I have created something. And I think that's important. I find we dancing too much.
All right.
Nalini, what do you think on that in terms of how this can evolve?
How African legacy can evolve. Well, for sure, picking up on the 2 points that was said already, we need to have discussion, and what was her point was we need to stop beating around the bush. We need to be more direct
Stop
in
dancing.
our conversation.
Yeah.
In our conversations with it. But also I believe that we need to go back and fix the story, because along the way I feel like the stories get screwed, pages missing from the book. Somebody take a eraser and rub off some things and written their own thing in there. We need to get the story straight. Definitely there was a time where they really suppressed African culture, African religion, even depressed the way women wear their hair, and we actually starting to see a revolution in terms of bringing back a sense of pride in African culture. And I think that will be very important in the way important for the way that how we move forward and how it will evolve. We need to get the buzz going. We need a marketing strategy or something for African legacy. The more buzz there is about it, the more people will want to learn about it. So that's what I have to say on that.
Great. And Kosi. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
point that people who legacy influencers, people who influence legacy, people like Brendan who live in it, speak in it, wearing it.
That's right.
It's the time for you to write a book on it. Don't wait until they get old and then say, remember when we had that discussion with Brendan all the way back when? No, this is the time. We want to honor our legacy influencers later on in life, and then we try to remember the story. I mean, even now, I still pick in my daddy brain. He have so much in there. I'm like, yeah, no. So he had this now. And, you know, it is important. Write a book, teach your children while you're in your prime, not later on in life. You know, all of that is important.
Great. Yeah. And Kosi.
I fully agree with everybody. As I said before, it just has to be normal conversation, like just having these conversations all the time. Like obviously, as Kavel was saying that it has to be a direct discussion immediately, because if you not have any direct discussions, it'll never get to a place where it's just a normal conversation.
Yes.
We need to do better. Talk about these things, ask questions. Kind of opposed to forcing things down people's throat, but get asking questions, putting it out there, having the conversations, and just continue having the conversations, especially with your younger siblings or your children or even your parents, because the barrier between children to parents and having these conversations, and my mother probably going and watch this. And I ain't had this conversation with her as yet, but I can't go to my mom and say, well, why are we worshiping a Caucasian Jesus now? Like, why? How would that make any sense?
So that's a different discussion.
I cannot go
right?
to my mother and ask her, but I need to do that,
So that is not, we're not ready for that. The elders not
We're not ready for
that
that
discussion.
conversation, but we
But
have
Jennifer,
to.
you didn't want them.
You
You didn't want them.
You had to discuss it. You had to ask the question.
But
Yeah,
I'm
that's
agreeing,
the
and I would like at this stage for Terri-Ann to come back in, so we can, continue along in terms of chatting, especially where I have her coming in because the conversation.
My radical views.
Yeah. and I keep checking timer because I know this conversation could go on and on. But I like what you think, Terri-Ann, of what Amir said and especially what Nkosi just said there.
No, it's important.
And Kosi, I think you are very right. And us old people need to understand that part of the reason that our African legacy has not been strongly passed on, was firmly passed on, is that religion was one of the main tools, because every other group that is perceived to have a strong legacy, whether it is Hindu, whether it is Muslim, whether it is Buddhist, whether it is Jew, whether it is Baha'i, all right, whether it is Orisha, you realize what all those words are. Those words are religions. So you are very right. And that is a question that you need to go speak to your mom about and present it.
But that's one of the bigger questions. But obviously, even Kavel said, like, her mom coming to her and saying she has to name her child Zachary. Like, why do I have to name my child Zachary? Why can't it be African name?
I want to put and I want to congratulate you all. You all are certainly very, very rooted African young people. And whether you have indirectly or on your own picked up your African tradition, or whether it is your environment, it is there. And I got this strong sense of your consciousness. But I want to take the legacy discussion into a different area, because I see legacy in two parts. There is history, which is the legacy that I get, I inherit, I research, and it is the culmination of my ancestors and everything like that. But there is legacy that is creation, which is how in my being, I am preparing for moving forward and taking forward. And what I would like to hear is, how are you as young professionals? Is there a consciousness of you being African, Afro-Trinidadian, Afro-Caribbean in your day-to-day life as you create whatever you're creating? Because what you're doing day-to-day is what you're going to leave for the future. So where's that consciousness?
My consciousness
Really
is
starting.
well, my consciousness is there. Everything I do is pro-African, and when people say you're pro-African, it doesn't mean that I am anti anybody else. I am just African first, and anything else could come after. So if I need a plumber, like I'm in a group, a business group, and there's African business people. This is the first place I look for anything. Anybody know this one? Is it African owned? Yes, no, and we go from there. So much so that I purchased a book for my children. And
history and there's creation. So I'm asking now, what are you creating as Afros?
Yeah.
Right. I think I could go first. It's always on my conscious on a day-to-day basis, breaking that glass ceiling that was set for me, one, being a female, me, two, being the skin color that I am, African. It's all for me about proving people wrong, and it's all for me about, showing people that I could do it, no matter if my gender, no matter my race. It has always been like that.
Don't forget your neighborhood. Don't forget your neighborhood.
Oh, okay. And of course, and where I'm from, Mova, the ghetto. Okay. From ever since going to school, I always wanted to prove people wrong. Okay. I studied. I was just like I was gonna go for that scholarship. I was in a class. Let's say I found myself in the elite classes, as we say, the scholarship classes. It was mostly like Indians. I didn't want to say, but it was mostly Indians. Those South schools and stuff like that. And I will find myself on the maxi up the bus route to go to whatever classes they're going to. To me, it was all about being in that same space as those that I strive to be. If they're going, I want to go. And I don't care where I'm from. I don't care what if I'm female, if I am male, I don't care. I want to be there. It was always a matter of taking a seat at the table, breaking that glass ceiling. And it even passed on for me in terms of the line of work that I do. So I am an owner of a tire shop, and that is a predominantly male industry. When I started off, it wasn't easy at all. It was very, very difficult trying to convince, this monopoly. I will say that the tire industry is a monopoly of old Indian men, and me coming up to them as a young female, Black female, and telling them, well, I am going to do a tire shop. I got a lot of them turn their back on me. And it was me, keep on trying, keep on going at it and proving myself every day that I could do it. I could manage it. I could manage the stocks. I could learn just as much as they can about the tire business, and hopefully in the future do better than them. So my legacy is all about breaking that glass ceiling as a female, a young female African in this country. It has always been, and that is something that I want to pass on. I don't have kids as yet, but I'm hoping that when I die, that's the legacy that I want to leave. That I wasn't afraid to sit at the table where I don't belong. So that's my take.
Nalini, are you conscious of your legacy having impact even now?
Yes.
And how do you manifest that?
I know that, I am at the budding stage of, creating my legacy, because I see it being a ripple effect with the people around me and my family and my friends. They look at me, even my older family, they say, damn, like, Nalini is only this age and she doing so much and she putting all this in place. Like, look at where I am in my life now. Time for me to do something. So
Yeah.
I am actually seeing myself being a motivation for people that is older than me, that maybe thought that, that they reached that midlife crisis and it's all over for them. But I kind of like the beacon of hope for the people around me. And people come to me, they want to throw their ideas at me. They want to, any discussion that they want to have in terms of financial literacy and, having something for yourself, starting up a business, most of the time, they're able to bounce those ideas off of me, and I'm always happy to share information. So I'm seeing my legacy already start growing, because I love to share, and I love to receive information.
Crazy. So that creative. So in your day-to-day existence, are you conscious of what is the legacy that you're creating as an Afro male from Trinidad?
My simplest answer, well, to me, when I hear that question, I'm like, me creating on a daily basis is just me waking up every day and having my hair how it is and operating how I am with my accent in the place called Miami, and showing that we people from Trinidad, people from Afro, or anybody from Africa could do literally anything that anybody else could do. Like, it's not just Caucasian people or Jewish people or Indian people who could operate in high stakes or engineering or be doctors, and just being as Nalini said, being at the table. It's very important to have your face there and showing that you here doing this, and it's not just only other races or other people who look not like African could do things that African people lazy, or African people don't do this and they're not smart, and that kind of thing. So to me, on a daily basis, as of right now, just me waking up and doing what I do at a high level just shows that I am African, and I am putting my people on the map in the same rooms as everybody else, even though I might be the only person who's look like me in all the rooms that I go in, like, and I don't look at it in a way that, I don't look at it and, oh, I'm the only African here. It's just, well, I am African, you are Caucasian, you are Indian, all of us say you are Chinese or Asian, all of us say all of us equally able, like, I don't ever look at myself as a lesser than anybody else.
Can you, when you go about, see the results of your, and I call legacy what you've created and what you've left to inspire others and influence others? Can you see the results of your legacy that you can point to and have someone be inspired because this man who looks like me, his hair is like mine, left this?
Definitely. Because when I was in university, I kind of took up a lot of leadership positions in like student organizations on campus. And looking back at it, there's only kind of persons, only me who look like me kind of went up to lead. Like, I was in charge of the Caribbean Student Association. I was on the International Student Committee. I was the president of my housing hall, basically. And just going up and doing those things encourage people like me from Trinidad, like you're from a small island, like you coming up here and you just come to get education, but you're also outspoken, and you also could talk to people, and people will look up there, and people will be like, oh, like them is the Trini boys who do this and do that, and just being there and putting yourself out there, just make other people who look like me, younger than me, do the same.
Right.
So
Is there
that's
anything
just,
else that you may leave that people can point to from your day-to-day existence?
I went to Fatima.
Right. Have you ever gone back and given a speech to any of like the Form 6 class?
Not yet,
Right.
and that is why.
No, it's not matter. That is why, because I remember one of my legacies is in St. Augustine Senior Comprehensive. They named a sports house after me because I was nominated for Sportsman of the Year 6 times for karate and stuff like that. I went back and I spoke to the Form 6 classes, and those are legacies that you want to pass on, so that when they go to Fatima, hey, this is Nkosi, yeah, you are 29 years old, you have a master's already.
Right.
Right, at 29 years old. That is a great achievement. And there are
Right.
little black boys and African boys and African girls looking at this and saying,
Yeah.
masters, maybe a master. When they hear masters, I think you're gonna be like 45, or you have to be this old person to
Right.
get this master's, not knowing at 29, you can have your bachelor's and your master's already. So these are
And
things that should be spoken and they should be heard about. Even if you do a little, as I say, you're humble about it. However, as Mrs. Braffett was saying, we have to create that legacy. You can't wait on your time and say, well, all right, when they call me to do the third twin tower in Palmace or whatever, then I'll say, right, this is what I do, and this is what I do. Whatever projects you did, take a little picture and say, I was the project manager on this hotel, I was the project manager. And people will be like, I didn't know that. How you got into that? Tell me more. Where to go? How to do it?
And I'm telling you, I am putting it to you that if you have a child, you start now to be like, this is my legacy. Daddy created this building. That you start to think of yourself as, hey, I am actually leaving a legacy. You know what I mean? We are not very much older than you, but you know what I mean? You as time goes by, you will see that you have already started creating your legacy. And I will just go last and say that I am trying to live a legacy-driven life. In my my job, which I'm very passionate about, dealing with children and educating children. It is creating my legacy and also helping them create from that young age, you know what I mean? So I am very, very conscious of it, of course, being having the father that I have, and also as a single mother, I am even more conscious of it and leaving that legacy for my son and putting things in place for him as well. So I'm conscious of it. I am constantly, and I don't just have African children in my school. And so I'm conscious of how I deliver my curriculum and how proud I want them to be. And so I teach them that as well, how to be proud of who you are, how to, we're all different, all of those things. It's part of me creating a legacy and just consistently being conscious of, living that type of life, that legacy-driven life.
Well, my last question, how old is your school? How long has your school been in existence?
6 years.
6 years, okay. So it means that your oldest graduate is probably 9. So you haven't had a C successors yet.
Not yet.
Okay,
That's
so
my son.
one of the things that I think is so important for us, and this is why I asked the question, because when we speak of legacy, we have to take 2 perspectives. Yes, there's historical, but we could get very, very caught up in the history, and as time goes on, the history becomes very remote, or we don't have things to link it to. So if you're an engineer, you would have the history of the old engineers, but you are continuing in that legacy. You are continuing to build it. And just as they left the pyramids and they left the the aqueduct systems and whatever it is. Brandon, you're in martial arts, and Nalini, you're in entrepreneurship, and most of all, Kavel, you are in education. These are all
Most
values
important one.
of our Afro heritage. And so you're not only conscious of the legacy that has been left to you, but I think the most important thing that we as the 5.8G cohort, the most important thing we can do in terms of having conversations with the younger generation is to help you realize that you have come up on solid legacies, and in your day-to-day lives, you are continuing, even if it's subconscious, you're continuing to build it. And when you look around, you will see, I have some work to do with my car, Nalini. I'm finding you because I need a tire and I need a detailing job to be done.
Most definitely.
You in Kosi, you could go and you could be part of a great metropolitan city. What better credential to come and validate you're doing that here? You've already done it, you know. And Kavel, when you begin to get I have a friend who has a preschool. She's going on 30 years, and she has I think she recently celebrated her PhD. The child got a PhD, it's hers. You know, and Brandon, the same with your business. So one of the strongest things I think we can do as the 5.8G cohort is to help the young people realize the continuity. This is because when you're in the middle of it, if you are not conscious that I am as good as, and that's why I said what I said before, there's no handicap. There's no handicap. I am conscious. I am doing it in whatever field. I could be making tolam and selling on the side of the road. If I have someone coming continually and dependent on me, and that's my legacy. So, great. I am very proud of all of you. I come off my soapbox now.
So, Terri-Ann, that's a good way, because I'm looking at time in terms too of wrapping up and just said, because I would say part of maybe what we could have done better, or what we didn't do as good, is that I really always say we had fault in not bringing up your generation to really more speak out. And what we used to call boasting is not boasting. It's like what Terri-Ann said.
Awareness.
It is awareness.
Awareness.
You are very skilled. You are talented. You all are brilliant. And all what you do, you tend to take it for granted, but that's our fault. Because we did not, we felt that if you praise you too much, it will go to your head. That is an elders kind of thinking.
As you were speaking just now, I was thinking about basically what you're speaking about. I was thinking that how does the older generation help us be better in terms of basically shouting to the rooftops, this, that, and just the simple fact of you all inviting us to have this discussion with all of us together is just, but that in itself is helping us boost ourselves and our African legacy. Just having conversations about ourselves and having conversations about our achievements and what we plan to do and how we plan to go forward. So
the tool is the conversation, Nkosi. The tool is the conversation.
Exactly.
Any closing, Brandon?
In closing, I would say, don't be afraid to, let people know where you stand with your ideas, your thoughts, and how you perceive things. Do some research. The information is there. Dig deep for it. And keep pushing on.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
Kavel?
In closing, I just want to encourage parents to have direct discussions with your children. let us not continue to tiptoe around our African legacy, our African history, our culture. It's important, and it's important from a young age that we do that for them. So yeah.
Great. And Lene.
And for me, I just want to say I'm so happy that I was a part of this conversation. It was a real mind ticking conversation that really made me internalize about my own legacy, and some of the ideas that was brought forward by the rest of the panel was just spot on, and it really helped me internalize a lot. So I'm really grateful for this conversation. I don't speak a lot. I do not want to put myself out there. For a lot of the reasons you talk about, you're shy, you don't want to be boastful, you want to stay humble in your truth. But this conversation really solidified the fact that I need to get myself out there and don't be afraid of my successes. And to really just promote, how well I'm doing, and, just be happy about where I am right now and where I'm going to go, and, just be optimistic about it and not afraid to talk about it. So it was really nice,
So I'd like to thank you all. I mean, it's really fantastic. Hope that we could continue with these conversations. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up more or less on the emancipation, on securing an African legacy. Well, Terri-Ann, listening to this generation, the younger generation, it was such a fantastic conversation, and I learned a lot. I really loved how they spoke freely, and, they're thinking about legacy. And when you ask that question about how they would create their own legacy and what they are leaving, I found, what is said, and you can see that it really caused them to go deep, like what Nalini said, and really examine themselves to say, wait, what legacy am I creating? So for me, that was really, I learned a lot from just that bit of, the response to that question.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy.
The thing that we have to learn, because our focus is the 5.8G cohort. They were guests on our show.
Yeah.
It is we who have to, in creating our own legacy, part of legacy is building and preparing for the future. If we do not have that intergenerational conversation to help the others recognize how they are continuing to build and strengthen the legacy that they have received, and how they are continuing to build so that the legacy remains intact, it's modernized, it remains relevant, and then there's continuity in history. So I want our viewers to understand that our responsibility for ensuring African legacy goes on is to be having these conversations where we help the younger and the older understand that we have legacy history, but we are continuing to create, and it's great, no matter where it comes from. No matter where it comes from and what you're doing. That's what's so important.
So great. So at this stage, we're just saying bye, and, looking forward again for our last show on emancipation, really, and about the legacy next week.
Great. So, see you. Bye.
50 Plus Tribe and follow us from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean.
Thank you for joining us on this Connections 50 Plus 5.8G Alive show.
We hope you enjoyed the lively conversation and look forward to seeing you next week.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We really love getting your feedback. Bye for now.